4 months later, December 2018, Mboti took a deep breath as she stepped into the familiar warmth of the sanctuary. It had been 4 months since her valve replacement surgery, and though her body had healed, her heart still carried the weight of unresolved emotions. Today was her first time back, and she hoped the familiar faces and comforting atmosphere would bring her some peace. As the service concluded, Mboti stood, ready to leave quietly. But before she could slip away, she felt a gentle tap on her shoulder. Turning, she found herself face to face with Nir. "Mboti, it's so good to see you back," Nir said, his smile warm and genuine. This time, he didn't struggle to pronounce her name. It's something he has practiced over and over again. "How are you feeling?" Caught off guard by his presence and sincerity, Mboti hesitated before replying, "I'm doing well, thank you. It's been a long recovery, but I'm grateful to be here." Nir nodded, his eyes searching hers. "I'm glad to hear that. I've been thinking about you, praying for your recovery. I know we didn't get a chance to talk much during your surgery, but I want you to know that you've been in my thoughts." Mboti felt a flush rise to her cheeks. "Thank you, Nir. That means a lot. I've been meaning to thank you properly for your care during my procedure. It was a difficult time." Nir's expression softened. "I was just doing my job, but I'm glad I could be there for you. If you ever need anything, even just someone to talk to, please don't hesitate to reach out." Mboti's heart skipped a beat at his offer. "I appreciate that," she said quietly, feeling a mix of gratitude and apprehension. "It's been a challenging few months, but the boys and I are managing." Nir's face lit up at the mention of her sons. "How are they doing?" "They're adjusting," Mboti replied, her voice tinged with both pride and concern. "Arno is preparing for college, Milan is doing well in school, and Bonolo, well, he's as energetic as ever." Nir chuckled. "Sounds like you have your hands full." Mboti nodded, smiling despite the complexities of her life. "Yes, but they're my world. Everything I do is for them." There was a moment of silence as they stood in the crowded church hall, the sounds of other congregants mingling around them. Nir seemed to be searching for the right words, and Mboti wondered if he was feeling the same mix of emotions she was. "I'd like to get to know you better, Mboti," Nir said finally, his voice steady and sincere. "Maybe we could have a drink sometime, or just a chat after church. No pressure, just as friends." Mboti pounded in her chest, caught completely off guard by Nir's offer. She had always assumed he was married, and now she was questioning why he would make such an offer. Part of her wanted to agree to next Sunday, but she caught herself, needing to understand more. "That sounds nice, but how is your family? I mean, your wife and daughter?" she asked hesitantly, hoping to clarify her doubts. Nir's facial expressions saddened a little, but he quickly caught himself, not wanting to reveal too much. He responded, "Well, my daughter Noam is in the children's class. I'm going to get her, and as for my wife, I'll say God has other plans for me." Mboti looked surprised. However, on a second thought, Nir wondered, how did she know about my daughter? And who was she referring to as my wife? Trying to trace the connection, he couldn't but had to ask politely, "How did you know about my daughter? And what made you think I was married?" Mboti, in an apologetic tone, replied, "I'm sorry if I made the wrong assumption. I saw you at church during the international service, with a little girl and a woman who I thought were your daughter and wife." Nir's expression softened as he understood the confusion. "Ah, that must have been my sister, Yael. She helps out a lot with Noam." Relieved, Mboti managed a small smile. "Thank you for clarifying. I'd like lunch then, maybe next Sunday." Nir's smile widened. "Next Sunday it is. I'll look forward to it." As they parted ways, both Nir and Mboti felt a surge of excitement. Nir headed towards the children's class to pick up his daughter, Noam. As soon as he saw her, his joy overflowed. He picked her up and threw her gently into the air, catching her with a laugh. "Daddy, what's gotten into you?" Noam giggled. "Just happy, sweetheart," Nir said, his heart light with hope. Meanwhile, Mboti walked briskly towards the car, her mind racing with thoughts of their conversation. Her son Arno noticed her unusual energy and quickly caught up to her. "Mom, slow down," he cautioned. "Your chest is still healing." Mboti smiled, trying to calm herself. "I know, Arno. I'm just excited. It's been a good day." Arno shook his head with a smile. "Just take it easy, okay?" Mboti nodded, still feeling a flutter of excitement. For the first time in a long while, she started looking forward what the future might hold. The following Sunday, Mboti and Nir met at a cozy cafe not far from the church. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, with the soft hum of conversation and the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. They chose a corner table by the window, where they could talk without interruption. Nir smiled as he handed Mboti a menu. "I hope you like this place. It's one of my favorites." Mboti glanced around, taking in the charming decor. "It's lovely. Thank you for suggesting it." They ordered their drinks, and the conversation started with the usual small talk about the weather and their week. Gradually, they delved into more personal topics. "So, what do you do for work?" Nir asked, genuinely curious. "I'm a school counselor," Mboti replied. "It's rewarding. I love it. Helping students gives me a sense of purpose." Nir nodded, impressed. "That's wonderful. I'm an anesthesiologist, as you already know. It can be stressful, but it's rewarding in its own way." As their drinks arrived, Mboti began to share more about her background. "I was born and raised in South Africa. Moving to the United States was a huge adjustment for me." Nir leaned forward, intrigued. "What was the biggest culture shock for you?" Mboti laughed softly. "There were so many, but one that stands out is how people greet each other here. In South Africa, we're very expressive. We hug, we kiss on the cheek, and we're generally very warm. Here, people are more reserved. It took me a while to get used to that." Nir chuckled. "I can imagine. It must have been quite a change." "It was," Mboti agreed. "But I've grown to appreciate both cultures. They each have their own unique beauty." Nir then shared his own story. "I was born in Israel, but my mother and I moved to the US when I was 12. My father passed away suddenly when my mother was pregnant with my sister. That experience bonded my mother and me deeply. I had to step up and be the man of the house at a young age." Mboti listened intently, her heart going out to him. "That must have been incredibly difficult." "It was," Nir admitted, his voice softening. "But it also taught me resilience and the importance of family. My mother is my rock. We've been through so much together." Their conversation flowed easily, each story revealing more about their backgrounds and experiences. Mboti found herself laughing and sharing stories about her childhood in South Africa, while Nir listened with genuine interest. As the afternoon wore on, they realized they had only scratched the surface of getting to know each other. But there was a connection, a comfortable ease in their conversation, that left them both looking forward to more. Finally, as they finished their drinks, Nir looked at Mboti with a warm smile. "I've really enjoyed this. Thank you for sharing so much with me." "Me too," Mboti replied, feeling a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the drink. "I'd love to do this again sometime." "Absolutely," Nir agreed. "Next time, maybe you can tell me more about South Africa. I'd love to learn more about your culture." Mboti smiled, feeling a sense of excitement and looking forward to their next meeting. "I'd like that." Consequent dates. On a sunny Saturday, Nir was off from work. He invited Mboti for a picnic lunch at the park. They spread a blanket under a large oak tree, with a view of a serene pond. Nir had prepared an assortment of sandwiches, fruit, and a homemade dessert. As they ate, they talked about their favorite childhood memories. Mboti shared stories of her adventurous days in South Africa, while Nir recounted his life in Israel before moving to the US. Their laughter and easy conversation filled the afternoon, and they both felt more connected than ever. Their next date was a cozy dinner at a charming Italian restaurant. The dim lighting and soft music created an intimate atmosphere. Over plates of pasta and glasses of wine, they delved deeper into their personal histories. Nir spoke about his struggles adjusting to life in America as a teenager, and Mboti opened up about her challenges as a single mother. The evening was filled with meaningful conversation and an undeniable sense of growing affection. For their third date, Nir and Mboti attended a cultural festival in the city. They wandered through the colorful stalls, sampling food from different countries and watching traditional performances. Mboti enjoyed explaining various aspects of African culture to Nir, who listened with fascination and admiration. They danced to the lively music, laughed at their attempts to master new dance steps, and shared a sense of joy and freedom. By the end of the day, they felt even closer, having shared such a vibrant experience together. Their fourth date was a special one. Nir invited Mboti over for dinner at his house. He spent the afternoon preparing a delicious meal, wanting everything to be perfect. When Mboti arrived, she was greeted by the inviting aroma of spices and herbs. Nir showed her around his home, which was warm and welcoming. They sat down to a beautifully set table, and Nir served a meal that showcased his culinary skills. Over dinner, they talked about their dreams and hopes for the future. After dinner, they moved to the living room, where a cozy fire crackled in the fireplace. They sat close, talking softly about their children, their faith, and their growing feelings for each other. As the evening grew later, the atmosphere became more intimate. Nir looked into Mboti's eyes, his heart pounding. "Mboti, I've really enjoyed getting to know you. You've brought so much joy into my life." Mboti's eyes softened, and she smiled warmly. "I feel the same way, Nir. These past few weeks have been wonderful." After a moment of silence, Nir took a deep breath and began to open up about his past. "I don't think I've ever told you this, but my wife died in a car crash. She was pregnant with our daughter at the time. It was the hardest thing I've ever gone through." Mboti's eyes filled with compassion. "Oh, I'm so sorry. That must have been devastating." Nir nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "It was. For a long time, I was a broken man. I was dealing with so much grief. I was in so much pain. That was how I stepped my feet into our church, back in 2011. I was trying to find some semblance of peace." Mboti thought back to those days, and it all made sense now. She remembered seeing Nir, his face soaked with pain, and now she understood why. "I remember you then," she said softly. "You seemed zoned out, so lost. I had no idea what you were going through." Nir reached for her hand, grateful for her understanding. "It's been a long journey, but I've finally started to heal, and meeting you has been a big part of that." There was another pause, and then Nir gently shifted the conversation. "What about you, Mboti? Any personal relationships I should know about? Husband? Boyfriend?" Mboti's expression shifted slightly, and she looked away. I'm not ready to talk about that yet. It's complicated." Nir squeezed her hand reassuringly. "That's okay. We can take our time. I'm here whenever you're ready." The evening continued with a mix of lighter conversation and shared laughter, but the depth of their earlier exchange lingered, strengthening their bond. As the night drew to a close, Nir looked into Mboti's eyes, his heart full. Slowly, he leaned in, and Mboti felt her breath catch. Their lips met in a gentle, tender kiss, a culmination of their deepening connection. When they finally pulled back, both of them were smiling. The kiss had said everything words couldn't, and they knew their relationship had just reached a new and beautiful stage. Mboti initiated leaving, sensing the undeniable passion between them. Nir offered to give her a ride home, and she gratefully accepted. As they drove, the car filled with a comfortable silence, the night's events replaying in their minds. Suddenly, Mboti's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and saw a pastor's wife displayed. She answered, her voice steady. "Hello, Pastor Laura," Mboti greeted. "Mboti, dear, I hope I'm not disturbing you." Laura's kind voice came through. "I wanted to see if we could meet sometime. When would be a good time for you?" Mboti considered her schedule. "Tomorrow works for me. How about we meet at the church around noon?" "Perfect. I'll see you then," Laura said warmly, before hanging up. Nir pulled up to Mboti's house and parked the car. He got out and walked around to open the door for her, holding her hand as she stepped out like a queen. The gesture made her heart flutter. "Thank you, Nir," she said softly. "Anytime," he replied, smiling. He walked her to the steps of her house, their hands still intertwined. Mboti felt a warm glow from his touch. "Would you like to come in?" she offered, a hopeful note in her voice. Nir shook his head gently. "Maybe next time. I need to pick up my daughter from my mother's house." As Mboti stepped inside, she was met with the excited and joyous smile of her youngest son, Bonolo. His happiness was contagious, and she smiled back, curious about what had made him so joyful. "Mom, look!" Bonolo exclaimed, pointing towards the living room. Mboti's smile faltered as her gaze followed Bonolo's gesture. There, standing in the middle of the living room with a smile, was her ex-husband, Bandile. "Hello, sweetheart," Bandile greeted, his voice smooth and familiar. Mboti felt a rush of emotions: shock, anger, confusion. She hadn't expected to see him again, especially not now she's finding happiness.